of exclusive satellite imagery of some of India's strikes on Pakistan during Op Sindoor. Now, we've been broadcasting these images for a period of time, but we've now got the first high-resolution images of the strikes in Murid. And as this report with my colleague Shiv Arur and I in conversation explains, this particular hit may be one of the primary reasons Pakistan came to the ceasefire table.
My colleague Vishnu Shom, as always, has scooped these images. Vishnu, the Murid base, the Nur Khan base, I want to hand it over to you immediately because these are jaw-dropping images that Vishnu has accessed via Maxa. Images of incredibly high resolution, which we haven't seen so far. This is the first time, Vishnu.
And that's why we're doing it, because what we're going to show our viewers now is an incredible series of hits, perhaps even targeting an underground facility of quote-unquote special weapons, which the Pakistanis may have been using. But let's quickly run through the photos over here, the high-resolution Maxar satellite imagery. Look at the image on the left. This is of the Murid Air Base. This is a command and control center. This is an image of the 16th of April. Now, look at the image of the 10th of May. That's when India went in with the strikes. Look at the circles over there. If you can't see much, don't worry. We've got the next image coming up for you. Let's go to that next image. This is the same building. And here you can see the areas which were circled. In fact, Shiv, significant damage. Now, what's been explained to me is
all of these are strike damage here.
All of these are strike damage, right? And the reason this is interesting is that this building hasn't collapsed, but the fact of the matter is that the warheads have penetrated over here, is what I have learned, because of overpressure inside. Human beings, anybody else, likely a great deal of damage inside this particular building. This is a command and control center next to a UAV hangar. Let's move to the next image, and this is where it starts getting really interesting. Look at the image on the left. This is the 16th of April, 2025. Again, Murid, a short distance away from the previous picture. Let's look at this particular area over here. Right, this particular area over here seems normal, nothing, just some sort of a field. Well, think again. Look at the post-strike image of the 10th of May. We've circled it over there. There is a crater over there. That's because there is an Indian missile warhead with a penetrator warhead, most likely, which has gone in over there.
That's the hole that the missile made.
That's right. It's likely gone in because, and I'm going to explain this with this next picture. And then Shiv, let's talk about this because it is quite remarkable. So the next image that you see on your screen has that area. We've zoomed in over there. It's a crater which is 3 meters wide. It is 30 meters away from this.
That's the underground facility
it says entrance,
that everyone's talking about
and
now.
That is where there is a road going in over there to an underground facility. We've used the word likely. I can now tell you that it's not likely. It is an underground facility. So Shiv, this basically means that the Indian Air Force was doing a couple of things. They were knocking out buildings, they were knocking out command and control centers, they were knocking out runways, and they were taking out hidden facilities of the Pakistani Armed Forces underground.
A 3-meter wide crater, Vishnu, is huge.
A 3-meter wide crater is relatively large. In fact, it was 8 meters on the runway at Rahim Yar Khan. 8 meters.
A big hole in the runway.
So yeah, that's right. So the thing which we can't tell with this satellite imagery is the depth. But as I understand it, this may have been a penetrator warhead. If that warhead penetrated deep, it sort of got through the concrete and exploded. If there was weaponry inside or anything else inside, that blast mark that you see could have been caused from inside out, so this, as opposed to be.
Could this all be burned?
Yeah, it is a burn. It is a clear. All of this, and we've got the previous image. But the entire area over here, the black area, is the blast diameter, the diameter of the blast. Whether this area was scorched as a result of flames from underground or whether it was as a result of the impact of the blast over here, we may not know. But this is an underground facility.
So would that suggest, the burn outside suggests that the inside of this underground facility has sustained significant damage?
Massive. It seems quite likely. We do know, and this is just 30 meters away. 30 meters away from the crater is the entry. If that is, as I understand it, a penetrator warhead, we don't know how far it's penetrated, but the chances are that there has been substantial damage underground.
I have to ask in that case, Vishnu, what does special weapons mean? Underground special weapons facility is what?
You want me to tell you the weapon?
You have to. You've got to at least hint at it.
Well, look, India's got a couple.
hit a facility 30 meters away from the entry point?
We can only speculate.
Yeah,
right.
Let's speculate.
Let's speculate. So we've got, remember in the Balakot strikes, there was the Spice warhead. There was the Spice warhead which had the ability to penetrate through a certain number of targets. We've got different weapon systems with warheads which are designed to pierce concrete, go deep down, right? And at a certain depth explode.
Yeah.
When that happens, there is blast overpressure inside, and depending on the extent of intrusion, it can easily destroy human tissue, number one.
Yeah.
But more significantly, in the case of something like this,
Weapons.
if there is machinery, ammunition, weaponry, whatever it is inside, that gets destroyed. And the question and the key point we don't know is that this entire scorch mark outside, is it the result of fire from inside, or is it the result of an explosion over here?
So it's possible from the evidence that we're seeing on the surface
Either way,
that there was something that exploded inside or cooked off or
quite possible.
Came ablaze, something like
Quite
that.
possible, because look, the gap is just 30 meters and the entry is absolutely clear over there. Let's move on to the next image, and this is from the Nur Khan Air Base. Now, we've played these images earlier on. In fact,
Nur Khan is Rawalpindi, Vishnu, right next to Islamabad.
It's right at the heart of Pakistan itself. We've had these images earlier. I'll tell you why we're doing it again, Shiv. This is the image from the 25th of April before the strike. Look at this particular area. You see a couple of buildings over here. If the camera person can just zoom in, I'm going to walk down, take a step down to this particular area. What you see over here, these aren't buildings. These are in fact tractor-trailer trucks, and they've got awnings on either side, right? This is the cab of the tractor-trailer. This is the trailer element, awnings on both sides. These are thought to be command and control centers.
Completely
on the 10th of May, that's gone. You can see the burnt-out wreckage, Shiv, right over here of one of the trailers. The other one is completely gone. But let's now just focus on this image and then tell you what the Pakistanis have been up to at this particular site, which is why we are focusing on this again. Let's go to the next image and we can focus a little bit on this Nur Khan Air Base. That's the destruction over there. There is partial damage to a building.
There's nothing left. It's completely gone.
There is truck debris over there as well. And so the final image in this report, where we can now bring you what the Pakistanis have done after this. So let's go to the next image, which is the final image. There are earth movers. There's post-strike debris cleanup. Buildings have been demolished, which actually goes to show we were talking about those trucks. There is a lot more, which has been devastated as a result of those strikes.
So Vishnu, coming to the final point in that case, and I'm going to go back.
How many images do the Pakistanis have of strikes in India?
Apparently nothing. I mean, why do they need to spend money asking for satellite images when they know they actually hit nothing, right? That's worth actually checking up on. But let's go back to the Murid pictures for just a moment and the underground facility, because I had an important question. The next image of the underground facility. Vishnu, we can only speculate on this as well, which is that, what is it? Was there one hit particularly that may have forced Pakistan to cry stop and say ceasefire? Could it be this three-metre crater?
Yeah. Well, the fact of the matter is that Pakistan came to the ceasefire table. It wasn't the other way around. I'll repeat what we've said earlier on. The Pakistani Director General of Military Operations, when India went in with our strikes to those terrorist training camps, said that, look, no, we are going to retaliate. And they did retaliate. 48 to 72 hours later, he was the one calling up and saying, no, that's enough. We now need to get into a ceasefire situation. Why? Possibly because of the weight of these Indian attacks. These were very, very heavy attacks. We did, Shiv, on the basis of this imagery and what we've been bringing our viewers for the last several days, escalate that matrix quite substantially.
Clearly.
We didn't exactly right-size our attacks on their airfields, did we?
And you know, the amazing thing about these images, Vishnu, also that I want to wonder about is the Air Force put out a lot of imagery in those press conferences that you attended. But they also didn't put out a lot of imagery, and that appears to be coming out in tranches like these pictures that Vishnu has.
I have a little pet peeve against ISRO, Shiv. Why does ISRO, which is a world beater, why is it unable to produce satellite imagery for public release of this resolution? This is not even military grade, by the way. Think about how strong military grade footage actually is, or pictures really are. We needed a lot more of that. Fortunate that we've got this Maxar imagery to show the world that, look, This is what India finally did.
And you know, the final thing that this tells me, Vishnu, and I want you to comment on that as well. This tells me that there's more that's waiting to be revealed by satellite imagery, you know, that are waiting to capture the right moment on Max or ISRO, whoever, that something like this to come 3 weeks later. And we've seen amazing jaw-dropping images already. But you scooping this 3 weeks after the first tranche of images actually came out tells me that we are sitting only on a fraction of what was potentially hit.
Absolutely. And it is interesting that the Indian Air Force isn't necessarily talking more than what they've already said so far. I think their sense and their philosophy is, look, we've had a job to do, we've done it, and we continue to do that. So it's for us journalists to pull out imagery like this and analyze it. But I think, you know, the weight of these strikes, very substantive shift.
So, you know, Vishnu, both of us have been obviously interacting with people in the military. You know, off camera, the armed forces have had their press conferences as well. What must be going on right now in the imagery analysis war rooms of the Air Force, of our you know, technical research organizations? You know, these are open source pictures that are now available in the public thanks to your news break. But what kind of imagery would the Air Force have with it?
Well, I would suspect that they've got return feeds from weapons which actually went into strike. You know, we've got weapons like that, the hammer, the crystal maze, etc., which provide video feed. We do not know which weapons they used. They've not told us which weapons they used to which target. But, you know, we know what weapons the Air Force has, whether it's the hammer, whether it's the Rampage, whether it's the BrahMos, or the Scalp, which has been spoken about. There are other weapon systems as well, as I understand it. The entire range of drones, we've discussed that extensively in the past. But just look at these strikes, you know, I mean, this is very, very substantive, and this is that building. And this is just one angle. The key point as we look at this imagery, because a lot of people from across the border are saying that, oh, you know, there are these tiny little holes. You know, those are tiny little holes, you know, visually when it comes to this picture. But the damage caused inside is absolutely immense. You don't need to have a gigantic crater with a hole inside. I mean, we've seen what's taken place in Bahawalpur. We've seen what's taken place in Murid.
Do we know what missile made that 3-meter crater? Last question.
Well, I could tell you, but then I'd have to shoot you.
Okay, awesome. Okay. Vishnu and I, as you can see, are not going to let go of the after effects of Operation Sindoor. And on NDTV, we will guarantee that we bring you those images first. And remember, at 6 p.m. tomorrow on NDTV's YouTube channel, Vishnu and my podcast, Control All Defense, has a special episode on the Indian drones that were used in Operation Sindoor. Do not miss it. It goes live, premieres 6 p.m. on the NDTV YouTube channel. My colleague Vishnu showed...
Oops, that's me. But let's move right on. Air Marshal Anil Khosla, the former Vice Chief of Air Staff, with us. Thanks, Air Marshal, very much for being with us. You know, you've had a look at a lot of the imagery, and we've got this one particularly striking image, Air Marshal, on the screen. You know, it shows the Murid Air Base, and it shows, you know, 30 meters away from an entrance site. And you can see that entrance site quite clearly, the point of impact. It just goes to show that perhaps we were trying to strike a target underground, some sort of a munitions bunker or anything else. How significant would a strike like this be?
Yeah, Vishnu, first of all, I think Vishnu, you and Shivarur, I'm going to suggest that to the military, Indian military, that they induct you formally into the Indian military and Indian Air Force if possible. The kind of work you have done and the authentic news which you have been bringing and the satellite pictures you're bringing. Yeah, so Air Force has not formally shown this satellite imagery as such. But if it is true that this is what has happened, then in all probability, there is something underground and which has been targeted appropriate weapon so that it can cause a damage and not go in for the entrance facilities which can be, you know, repaired within no time. Whereas if it is an underground facility and the target is known, then the appropriate weapon can be used to target it, and it would have a big impact on the message sent to the adverse enemy.
Air Marshal, it just strikes me that you know, when things started escalating, the Indian Air Force didn't hold back in terms of what it was trying to do in hitting Pakistani air bases. If they were trying to hit underground facilities, if they took out runways as aggressively as they did, in addition, of course, to hangars, they've caused substantial damage on the ground, right? And I don't think they're talking that much about it. I think what they've done is being showcased in images like this.
Yeah, Vishnu, to my analysis is that, after hitting the initial 9 terrorist camps, the escalation ladder, we kept the window open for Pakistan, but they didn't heed to it and they carried on escalating. And on 9th, when they used slightly heavier weapons, I think the message had to be sent very strongly. And the 10th attack on 12 airfields, the message was very, very clear. We can hit on any of the airfields of our choice and across the border of our choice. We can hit any type of target: runway, hangars, command and control center, radar, missile sites, AD systems, logistic nodes, and underground complexes. And the message was very clear. We can go to the two locations which are very close to your, very, very important. That is your Nur Khan Base and Murid. That is, the political power center, as well as the military headquarters of Pakistan. The strikes were done very close to them. So that message was very, very clear that if you want to escalate, you want to play this game, we are ready for it and we can hit you anywhere. We can hit every type of target. And that was, I think, what sunk in and make them come to their senses.
Air Marshal, we've also got several absolutely state-of-the-art air-to-surface missiles and munitions. There's a Hammer, for example, which isn't a missile. It's a kit which is attached on, I think, 1,000 and 2,000 pound bombs. But because it guides bombs with incredible accuracy onto targets, it is very useful. We've got something called the Rampage, which I think flies despite being launched from the air in a pseudo-ballistic missile's trajectory. We've got the Scalp, which is very expensive but equally very effective. And of course, you've got the BrahMos, which is the big one. Is this not among the most sophisticated arsenals of air-to-surface missiles anywhere in the world?
We've got a variety of weapons, and you mentioned some of them. And also we have, loitering munition, drones, which can also cause considerable damage. So target, whatever do you decide, after that there's a scientific process of planning, and you do target, it's called target to weapon matching. And appropriate target is chosen to address that target. Appropriate weapon is chosen to address the target, and not only a weapon, and the number of weapons also is calculated in a very, very scientific way. So we have now we have a very good mix of all types of weapons, and depending on their range, depending on their precision, depending on their destructive capability. So we have a lot of alternatives available with us, options available, I would say.
All right, Air Marshal, thanks very much for speaking to us, sharing your thoughts on this. I'm joined now by another Air Marshal, another excellent expert, Air Marshal Vinod Kumar Bhatia, also joined by Ambassador Yash Sinha, former Indian diplomat. Thank you, sir, very much for being with us. Ambassador Sinha, let me come to you first. Do you believe that any diplomacy that India practices now has benefited greatly from the weight of these air-to-surface strikes which have been carried out against Pakistani bases, that we are, in a sense, carrying out with our diplomatic activities from a position of military strength?
Thank you, Vishnu, for having me. I think certainly what our armed forces have been able to achieve during Operation Sindoor is truly remarkable. Even though I'm sure the images that you've shown are very clear images indicative of quite substantial damage at these various sites, 12 sites, will not be shown in Pakistan. And unfortunately, they live in denial. In fact, their failed general has been promoted to field marshal. So I think the problem here is not whether our diplomacy can take advantage of what has been done on the battlefield. Certainly we will. We have delegations all over the world, and I'm sure they're explaining to the various countries that they're visiting, the interlocutors, about what exactly happened. But the problem is Pakistan. They live in complete denial. I mean, I think I mentioned in one of your earlier programs that I landed at Nur Khan Air Base, and that was at that time PAF Chaklala, on the 1st of January 1994 with Foreign Secretary Dixit for FS level talks, and subsequently at least 5 times. So I know the import of striking the Nur Khan Air Base. Murid I haven't been, but I've been 40 kilometers away to the Katas Raj temple when I was posted in Islamabad. But the targets chosen, the fact that they could hit Jacobabad, which is quite far from the international border, Sakkar, of course, Murid, and Sargoda and Rawalpindi, Nur Khan Base. These are very important targets. And I think the messaging that has gone is very clear. I wish our Western media, particularly the so-called mainstream media, takes note of this, because they're buying the fake narrative that Pakistan has been selling. And Pakistan always sells lies, as you know. They won all the wars that they fought with us, including in 1971 when 93,000 POWs were taken into custody by us. But that is the nature of the Pakistani state. Unfortunately, the people, I'm sure the smarter ones among them, would have seen through their web of lies.
Air Marshal Bhatia, in terms of this battle of narratives, I disagree somewhat with Ambassador Sinha, just to the extent that while Pakistan may be battling its own battle, the images, the video, the evidence is absolutely clear. We know the sequence of events which has taken place. Does India really need to rely on a battle of narratives when the evidence is so lucid?
Well, I think both are equally important. We have, of course, all the proof which is being shown here on the TV by you and everybody. And the fact is that it should be also known by other people, public at large also. And I think I must compliment you and Shiv. I mean, you people are doing a fantastic job in this. And in terms of educating the Indian public and everybody who's involved in this. I just want to point out one thing. The extraordinary improvement that has taken place. I go back to 1971 when I was a flight lieutenant, and we had attacked Murid, and I had actually done a PR mission at Murid in 1971. But at that time, we were using Winton cameras, which had been modified onto, 57 millimeter rocket pods, and we were taking photographs with that. Today, the entire this thing has changed, when we can have all this, like imagery from satellites and so on and so forth. So we are really in the know of what has actually happened. So when I go back more than 50 years ago, what we did in 1971, by actually pulling and going there, and now it's a very stark difference. The other thing that I want to say is that the entire this thing has changed now, and it gives us fantastic capability of being able to hit Pakistan PAF bases, their terrorist targets, from what I call standoff distances. We don't even have to cross the border, and we can go there. Our weapons can go there, but we don't have to go there. What a stark change from 1971, where we had to pull within 500 meters of the targets to be able to attack right, and invite everything that came from them.
No, remarkable, absolutely. And thank you so much for explaining to our viewers how air warfare has fundamentally changed. Ambassador Sinha, last word to you. How important are the diplomatic missions now being sent out, leaders from all political parties traveling around the world? Again, the question is, with what we have done being as clear as it is, what exactly do we need to be saying to these countries around the world? Or is it only restricted to explaining to them that Pakistan is a terrorist state?
I think a mixture of both, Vishnu. I think as far as explaining to our interlocutors about Pakistan and the fact that it is a terrorist state, it's well known. I mean, most countries know it. They choose to ignore it. But these delegations, and they have very eloquent spokespeople there in the delegations, who will then interact with their counterparts and explain to them why we took this action, and the fact that there cannot be double standards. Because after all, when a Western target is attacked, there is immediate retaliation. And I don't want to name countries, but I was in New York during 9/11, so I know it was posted there. So I know what the reaction was. But apart from that, there have been reactions whenever a target in the West has been, whenever the West has been targeted through acts of terrorism. And we, of course, we've been very restrained in the past, but not anymore. And I think after 2015-16, the whole narrative has changed as far as we are concerned. And I think Operation Sindoor is one more step up the escalatory ladder. In fact, I think Pakistan's got a very clear message. I do hope that some of their benefactors, people who supply weapon systems I recall that the Yugoslav war, I think, it was a F-118A, by the Air Marshal might correct me, fighter that was shot by the Yugoslavs. But nobody questioned the defense, the platforms and the systems. Obviously, there is a vested interest here. So we need to be very careful when we sort of hear what the West has to say, at least some of their media channels. These are all put on stories for a particular purpose. So I think, one, these delegations will call out Pakistan for what it is, a state sponsor of terrorism. And two, as much as possible, and I'm sure your scoop in terms of the very clear satellite imagery would help in convincing them, at least the media, if they have interactions, of the damage that we have done and the potential for far greater damage in the future. So hopefully they will advise restraint, or at least advise Pakistan from desisting from any such actions in the future.
All right, well, I'd like to thank both of you very much for being with us this evening as we go through this really stunning satellite imagery, particularly the one of Murid. This is Nur Khan Air Base, but just the strikes on those buildings, and most significantly that large crater which we showcased just very, very close to an underground facility. And we can just see that image over there, the next one. Let's have it up full screen. It's remarkable what this picture shows, right next to the entrance of an underground facility. That's what the Indian Air Force hit. You can see the crater, the small dot. It's not really small in reality. It's 3 meters wide. But just 30 meters away is an entrance to a likely underground facility. That's what the Indian Air Force was also targeting.